There's a question that echoes through the corridors of human history, one that transcends religion, culture, and time. It's a question asked in moments of despair, in the quiet sobs behind closed doors, in the trembling hands clasped in prayer. Why do bad things happen to good people? It's a question that often emerges when we are confronted by the suffering of someone who radiates goodness, a kind neighbor, a devoted mother, a generous friend. And we can't help but wonder, where is the justice in this? Let me tell you about Rosa, a woman I once knew in our Spiritist community. She was a retired teacher, a widow, and a grandmother of 3. Every Sunday, she would come early to help clean the Spiritist Center. She brought homemade soup to sick neighbors. She read to the blind. Her heart was open and her hands were always busy doing good. And yet, Rosa was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer. Within months, her body grew weak. Treatments failed. Pain became a daily reality. Many who knew her were shocked. How could this happen to her? Some whispered questions in the corridors of the Spiritist Center. Others struggled in silence. Her suffering felt like a contradiction. I remember one afternoon, sitting beside Rosa's hospital bed. The room smelled of antiseptic and flowers. Her breathing was shallow, but her eyes were clear. I asked her gently, "Rosa, do you ever feel angry at God for what you're going through?" She smiled softly, an almost celestial peace in her expression, and said something I will never forget. "No, my child, I don't blame God. I trust Him. This body is temporary, but my spirit is learning." That moment changed something in me. I realized Rosa was not asking, "Why me?" She was asking, "What for?" She was not seeing her pain as a curse, but as a passage, a sacred part of her journey. You see, Rosa had studied the Spiritist teachings for decades. She had internalized a vision of life that doesn't end in the grave. For her, pain was not the opposite of love. It was part of the soul's evolution toward it. And this, my friend, is where Spiritism offers a light of understanding that transforms the darkness of suffering. But before we go deeper into doctrine, let's pause for a moment and reflect on this. How many Rosas have we known? People who lived with kindness and integrity and still faced heartbreaking trials? We see them every day: teachers, mothers, volunteers, caregivers. We hear their stories on the news or witness them in our own families. People who do everything right and yet still experience loss, illness, or tragedy. And in those moments, the heart cries out for meaning. That's where Spiritism steps in, not with empty promises or blind resignation, but with a profound invitation to understand life beyond the physical, to view suffering not as a punishment, but as a message, a mission, or a mirror of lessons long forgotten. As Allan Kardec writes in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 5, "Blessed are the afflicted, for they shall be comforted." But this comfort is not always immediate. It's spiritual. It's a seed planted deep in the soul, watered by faith, and illuminated by understanding. In the next part, we'll explore exactly what the Spiritist doctrine teaches about the causes of suffering and the deeper spiritual logic behind life's most difficult moments. But for now, I invite you to sit with Rosa's words. "I don't blame God. I trust Him. This body is temporary, but my spirit is learning." Let those words echo inside you and begin to open a new door of perception. When Spiritism approaches the question, why do bad things happen to good people? It doesn't offer superficial comfort or vague reassurances. Instead, it presents a coherent, compassionate, and deeply spiritual vision of life, a vision in which suffering is neither arbitrary nor cruel, but meaningful. To understand this, we must begin with one of the foundational principles of Spiritist philosophy, the immortality of the soul. In Spiritism, we are not merely physical beings having a fleeting experience. We are eternal spirits, momentarily clothed in a body. This earthly existence is just one chapter in a vast, spiritual journey. And every life, every trial, every joy and sorrow has a purpose in this grand tapestry. Allan Kardec, in the Spirit's book, poses a critical question. Number 132. What is the purpose of incarnation? The response from the higher spirits is clear. God imposes incarnation with the aim of leading spirits to perfection. In other words, life is school, and pain is often one of its most powerful teachers. This shifts everything. Under this lens, the suffering of a good person is not a sign of cosmic injustice. It's a part of their curriculum. But let's go deeper. Spiritism outlines several possible reasons why suffering comes into the life of someone who lives with kindness and integrity. First, consequences of past actions, law of cause and effect. One of the most central teachings in Spiritism is the law of cause and effect, often misunderstood as a mere karma system of punishment and reward. In truth, it is a law of education and justice. Many good people today may be experiencing the consequences of actions committed in previous incarnations, not as punishment, but as a natural correction process. Think of it as a soul's opportunity to rebalance, to heal wounds it once inflicted. A soul that once caused harm may now go through similar trials, not out of vengeance, but so it may deeply understand and transform. Second, chosen trials before birth. This concept, while difficult for some to accept, is incredibly liberating. According to Spiritism, many spirits, before reincarnating, voluntarily choose certain trials, knowing these experiences will accelerate their growth. They may choose a life of illness, poverty, or abandonment, understanding that such conditions will challenge their pride, awaken compassion, or allow them to repair past errors. These are not masochistic choices. They are made with the help of benevolent spirits and under the guidance of divine wisdom. These spirits are not seeking to suffer for suffering's sake. They are seeking to grow. Perhaps Rosa, the woman we met earlier, chose her illness as a way to free herself from deep attachments to the physical or as a final step in forgiving others and herself. Perhaps her gentle soul knew that through her struggle, she would inspire faith in countless others. Third, the mission of the suffering soul. Sometimes, a soul's suffering is not about personal past debts or chosen trials. It is a mission. Certain individuals carry burdens not because of who they once were, but because of who they are now. They are spiritually mature enough to transform pain into light. Their suffering becomes a testimony of resilience and love that touches everyone around them. These are the Roses, the Claras, the unknown heroes who suffer quietly and shine brightly. They remind us that the human spirit is capable of immense strength, and that even in the darkest hours, faith can guide us. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 5 again brings clarity. Suffering is often a blessing in disguise, the harbinger of joy to come. This is not to say that we should seek out suffering, nor that pain should be minimized. It means that, through the Spiritist lens, suffering becomes a sacred opportunity to awaken, to remember who we truly are, spirits on a journey home. Pain without bitterness. Spiritism doesn't ask us to deny our pain. We are allowed to weep, to ask, to ache. But it invites us to carry our suffering without bitterness, to see our trials not as enemies, but as instructors, firm, yes, but loving. When a good person suffers, we can now understand that there is more to the story than meets the eye. It is not the end. It is part of a divine curriculum, orchestrated by a creator who is love itself. In the next part, we will move into a deeper spiritual reflection based on the gospel and how the teachings of Jesus, through a spiritist interpretation, illuminate the purpose behind our suffering. But before we go there, I invite you to reflect on this. What if the hardships in your life are not a sign of failure, but a sign of readiness? When we experience pain, especially when we feel we have lived a righteous and compassionate life, the question can feel heavier. Why me, Lord? And yet, in the Spiritist understanding, we find ourselves returning again and again, not just to philosophical concepts, but to the living words of Jesus. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 5 is titled, "Blessed are the afflicted, for they shall be comforted." This simple statement, often misunderstood or glossed over, contains an ocean of wisdom when seen through the lens of Spiritism. Jesus does not glorify suffering for suffering's sake. He is not suggesting we rejoice in pain blindly. Instead, he is showing us the transformative power of affliction when approached with faith, humility, and love. The example of Christ. Let us look at Jesus himself. Was there a man more good, more pure, more loving than Christ? And yet, he was misunderstood, rejected, betrayed, tortured, and crucified. The Spiritist interpretation does not view this as a divine failure, but as the supreme example of redemptive suffering. Jesus embraced his trials not as punishment, but as mission. His suffering became light, teaching, and eternal hope for others. He was not exempt from pain, he transcended it. And so, when we ask, why do bad things happen to good people? We might remember that this was the very path the greatest soul to walk the earth also chose. Not because he was guilty, but because he was ready to love without conditions, even in the face of suffering. Affliction as spiritual fertilizer. In nature, for a seed to become a tree, it must be buried in darkness, broken open, and endure the pressure of growth. Spiritually, we are no different. Affliction breaks the shell of the ego. It strips away illusions. It invites us to stop running and to face the eternal within. As Spiritist teachings remind us, pain is often the chisel that sculpts the soul. It is during sickness that we discover patience. It is during loss that we uncover the depth of our love. It is during injustice that we are asked to forgive more profoundly. These are the teachings of the gospel in action, not as beautiful words to admire, but as living principles to embody. The Beatitudes reimagined. Consider the Beatitudes, not as distant poetry, but as divine truths of the Spirit. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Each of these speaks to a paradox, that those who appear weak in the eyes of the world are, in fact, strong in spirit. That those who suffer now are being prepared for a deeper joy. That our current afflictions are not the end, but the refining fire through which our true self emerges. This is not fantasy. It is a vision of justice and love that extends beyond one lifetime. Spiritual justice versus human justice. One of the most profound shifts that Spiritism invites us to make is to trade the limited scale of human justice for the vast scope of divine justice. Human justice asks, did this person do good? Then why did they suffer? Divine justice sees the soul across centuries, lifetimes, and dimensions. It sees not only what we have done, but what we are becoming. And in that divine view, no pain is wasted. No tear is shed without being seen. No effort to be good, kind, or faithful is forgotten. Everything contributes to the soul's evolution. In the gospel, Jesus tells us, not a sparrow falls to the ground without your Father knowing it. This is the comfort Spiritism brings, a loving God, present in every moment, even in our darkest hours. Hope that endures. So what do we take from all of this? That the suffering of good people is not the failure of God's plan, but the unfolding of it. That our deepest trials might be our greatest spiritual blessings in disguise. That even when life feels unjust, the soul is still advancing, healing, and preparing for higher joys. In our moments of anguish, let us remember the cross, not just as a symbol of pain, but of transformation. And the empty tomb, not just as a miracle, but as a promise of resurrection in every form, emotional, spiritual, eternal. In the next part, we will turn the lens outward and ask you, the viewer, how has suffering shaped your spiritual path? What questions has it awakened in your heart? But for now, pause, breathe, and let this truth sink in. Blessed are the afflicted, for they shall be comforted, because their affliction is never in vain. Now I turn the spotlight to you. Yes, you sitting there, listening with an open heart. Perhaps you've made it this far because this question, why do bad things happen to good people, is not just philosophical for you. Maybe it's personal. Maybe you've lost someone you love far too soon. Maybe you've battled an illness, not understanding why your body betrayed you. Maybe you faced rejection, abandonment, heartbreak, and in the silence afterward, you've whispered, what did I do to deserve this? Let me ask you gently and with love. Have you ever felt punished by life despite trying to be a good person? Take a moment to sit with that. So often, we equate being good with deserving only good outcomes. And when something painful happens, when life breaks our expectations, it can shatter our faith in God, in justice, in ourselves. But the Spiritist perspective invites a shift. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? We begin to ask, what is this experience awakening within me? So here's my invitation to you. Pause and reflect. Think of a moment in your life when you felt unfairly treated by life. A loss, a failure, a period of intense suffering. Now, ask yourself, what did that experience teach you about yourself? How did it change your priorities? Who did you become on the other side of that pain? Sometimes, our greatest spiritual transformations come not through sermons or books, but through the silent classroom of suffering. A classroom where the soul sits still, the ego is quiet, and the heart is tender enough to listen. The power of your story. You might think your story is ordinary, but I assure you, it is not. Each of us is walking a path that, from the spiritual world, is watched with immense love and care. Your trials, though unseen by the world, are seen by God, and by the spirits who walk beside you, cheering your every act of courage and forgiveness. What if the very suffering you're experiencing right now is preparing you for a mission? What if the pain you endured years ago is now the source of your compassion for others? We often say, I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but perhaps that experience is what shaped your empathy, your gentleness, your strength, and inner dialogue. Let me propose an exercise. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and imagine speaking to your spirit, not the version of you shaped by your job, your status, or even your body, but the eternal you, the one that has lived many lives, the one that chose this journey. Ask that version of yourself, why did I choose this path? What am I here to learn? How can I use this pain to grow? This inner dialogue, so simple, so silent, is where Spiritism becomes not just a doctrine, but a living compass. From resentment to responsibility. This is not about blaming yourself for your suffering. No, Spiritism is not fatalism. It is about reclaiming spiritual responsibility. We stop asking the world to be fair to us and start asking ourselves, how can I be faithful to the divine plan in my life, even when it hurts? That shift from victim to student is the most powerful step on the spiritual path. It doesn't erase the pain, but it gives it purpose. Now it's your turn. So, I ask you once more, from soul to soul, what trial in your life, past or present, has shaped you the most? Have you found meaning in it? If not yet, could you begin to seek it now with the tools of Spiritism, with prayer, with inner work? Your story matters. Your pain matters. And you are not alone. In the next part, we will look at how to take these spiritual insights and apply them practically in our everyday lives, at work, in our families, in moments of fear or anger or sorrow. But for now, sit with this question. Maybe even write about it. Talk to a friend. Or just talk to your soul. Because sometimes, healing begins with a single, sincere question. Spiritual understanding, no matter how profound, must eventually find its way into the rhythm of our daily lives. It's one thing to accept that suffering has meaning. It's another thing entirely to live that truth on a Monday morning when your body hurts, your heart is heavy, and the world seems indifferent to your pain. So how do we take these Spiritist teachings and make them real in our routine? How do we carry spiritual light through the corridors of our homes, workplaces, and minds when darkness tries to settle in? Let's walk through this together. First, morning intention. Start with the soul. Every day begins as a blank page. But for many, the alarm clock sounds and we're already overwhelmed by tasks, worries, or pain. Spiritism teaches that before we are anything else, we are immortal spirits on a journey. That means every morning is not just another day. It is another opportunity to evolve. Start your day with intention. It doesn't have to be long. Even just 1 minute of silent prayer or reflection can change everything. You might say, Lord, I may not understand why this is happening, but help me grow through it. Help me be a channel of love today. That small act centers your spirit. It reminds you, you are not alone. You are not lost. You are being guided. Second, pain as a mirror, not a wall. When difficulties arise, when someone mistreats you, when illness returns, when plans fall apart, Spiritism teaches us to view these moments not as walls that block our path, but as mirrors reflecting something deeper. Ask yourself, what is this situation trying to show me? Is this a chance to practice patience, humility, forgiveness? What part of me is still reacting with fear, pride, or resentment? This is what the spirits mean when they speak of self-knowledge as the key to progress. Pain becomes a doorway, not a dead end. Third, transforming emotions through service. Sometimes, suffering becomes so heavy that we close in on ourselves. That's natural, but prolonged self-focus can trap us in cycles of bitterness and sadness. One of the most healing paths Spiritism offers is service to others. It doesn't have to be grand. It can be as simple as calling someone who's lonely, smiling at a stranger, helping a neighbor with groceries, volunteering once a month at a Spiritist center. The key is this: when we lift someone else's burden, we feel our own become lighter. Chico Xavier once said, "Although no one can go back and make a brand new start, anyone can start now and make a brand new ending." Each act of kindness you offer is a step toward that new ending. Fourth, reframing the narrative. Many people live inside stories of injustice. "Why did this happen to me?" becomes the refrain of their identity. Spiritism invites a reframing. From victim to participant, from punishment to purpose, from anger to acceptance. It doesn't mean denying injustice or suppressing emotion. It means not letting those things define you. Instead of saying, "I suffered because life is unfair," try, "I suffered, and through that, I found deeper compassion, strength, and clarity." This inner narrative shapes how we experience life and how we move forward. Fifth, the discipline of hope. Hope is not just a feeling. It is a discipline, a daily decision to believe in divine justice even when circumstances seem unjust. This is the Spiritist faith, not blind, but reasoned, not naive, but resilient. When you find yourself in despair, repeat to yourself, "I am an eternal spirit. I am learning. I am loved. This pain has meaning, even if I cannot yet see it." This affirmation is not an escape from reality. It is a return to your deepest reality. Sixth, cultivate spiritual routine. Finally, just like we nourish the body daily, we must nourish the spirit. Create a simple spiritual routine. A reading from the Gospel according to Spiritism each evening. A short prayer before meals or before sleep. A gratitude journal to focus on blessings, even in the storm. These practices build inner strength so that when pain comes, your house is already built on rock, not sand. The Spiritist path is not a path without suffering. It is a path that transforms suffering into wisdom, compassion, and love. So the next time life feels unfair, remember, you are not being punished. You are being invited to grow, to forgive, to serve, to awaken. You are a spirit in progress. As we reach the end of this journey together, I want to return to a feeling. Not an idea, not a doctrine, but a feeling. The feeling of being human, fragile, confused, sometimes lost, and yet still searching, still loving, still hoping. This is what unites us. Whether you're listening from a hospital bed, your car, your kitchen, or in the silence of your heart, this message is for you. Yes, suffering exists. Yes, it touches even the kindest among us. But you are not forgotten. You are not alone. And above all, you are not being punished. You are on a sacred journey. In the Spiritist view, life is a sacred pilgrimage. You, dear soul, are a traveler walking through valleys and peaks, storms and sunshine, births and farewells. Each moment is a page in your eternal story. And while this chapter may be painful, remember, it is not the whole book. The pain you're experiencing may be heavy, but your spirit is greater. It is ancient. It is brave. It is deeply loved by God. You may not remember the choices you made before this life. You may not understand the why behind your suffering right now. But Spiritism reminds you, everything has meaning. Everything is purpose. Nothing is wasted. Not one tear. Not one sleepless night. Not one silent prayer. Return to trust. There is a peace that does not come from the absence of pain, but from the presence of trust. This is what Rosa felt in her hospital bed. This is what Christ radiated from the cross. And this is what you, too, can cultivate, not by denying your humanity, but by embracing your divinity. Trust that the same divine intelligence that created galaxies also guides your soul. Trust that your suffering is not a mistake, it is a message, a bridge, a mirror, a lesson. Make peace with the mystery. Not everything will be answered in this life. That's okay. Sometimes the soul grows not through knowing, but through accepting. Make peace with the mystery, not by giving up, but by opening up to love, to learning, to new ways of seeing the old ones. Forgive those who hurt you, even if they never say sorry. Release the need to control outcomes, and instead focus on your inner posture. Sow peace, even in fields of pain. This is inner reform. This is the real revolution Spiritism proposes, not one of dogma, but of the heart. You are the light you've been waiting for. If you've ever thought, "I'm too tired to go on," remember this. The fact that you're still here, still searching, still listening. That is faith in action. You are the light you've been looking for. You are the healer you've been waiting for. Because the divine dwells in you, not as something to be earned, but as something to be remembered. Spiritism doesn't promise a life free of suffering, but it offers a compass, a hope, a family of souls walking beside you, a prayer for the afflicted. Let us close with a simple prayer. Beloved Creator, in the silence of our hearts, we offer you our pain, not to be erased, but to be transformed. Teach us to trust, even when we do not understand. Help us walk with grace through trials, knowing that every step leads us closer to you. May we be instruments of peace, first within, and then around us. Amen. Your soul is brave. Before we say goodbye, I want to say this clearly. You are brave. Yes, you who has endured what others may never see. You who smiles through tears. You who chose not to harden your heart, even after it broke. The Spiritist doctrine honors you, not as a victim, but as a soul in transformation. So take this message with you, into your day, into your family, into your next prayer. And remember, bad things don't happen to good people. Challenging things happen to evolving souls. And you, my dear friend, are one of them. Thank you for sharing this sacred time with me. May your path be filled with inner peace, spiritual courage, and the unwavering certainty that you are loved, always.